since I'm from Celebrate Recovery, I'm going to just kind of change the atmosphere a little. I'm just asking everybody to stand, kind of just bounce around and lift your hands and shake it up a little. And just, Yes, exactly. And I needed to wake myself up too, so because that meal was very good. So have a seat. I thank everybody for joining us. Welcome to those of you who are online or on Facebook Live. Woody, as always, thank you. I'm so thankful for your faithfulness. All of those that have been involved for so many years, just to continue what God did in your heart a long time ago. So I'm truly just honored and privileged, and always love being here. And every year it's just so good, so good. All right, so let me see if I can lift this up a little bit, because there we go. So my name is Jackie. I am a grateful believer in Jesus. I am so nice to see everybody. I celebrate recovery in the areas of drugs and alcohol, sexual promiscuity, abandonment issues, codependency, self-destructiveness, just a lot of bad choices based on a lot of worse choices. So I am so grateful to be here. I love our theme this year, and it's funny because God is not funny. I mean, like, God's funny, but he just knows exactly what he's doing. And you think you're preparing for something, and yes, Russell, I try to prepare a little bit, but I want to be like you when I grow up, because, like, literally, I come in here this morning, I prepared 3 weeks ago, but just like, he just gave me a paragraph. And then it just then it was yesterday and last night, like at 9 o'clock, it's time I need to finish this. So I worked on it, great, thank you, Jesus. Woke up late today, I'm like, great. And then sure enough, I can't even tell you what I'm gonna share here today because I'm so grateful that it's not me. And that's it right there. It is not me. From the minute I began my dysfunctional living based on my dysfunctional upbringing, it had to be about Jackie, because I wanted to be seen, I wanted to be heard, I was important, I mattered. I had something to say, but nobody was listening. And if they heard my voice, they just weren't hearing me. And the pain and the fear and the anxiety and the worry and everything that comes along from growing up in an alcoholic, drug addict, abusive father atmosphere. And being the oldest of 3 children, and I can relate to so much that I've heard here today. My father was a heroin addict, an alcoholic, always beat up on my mom when he was home because he disappeared for days on end. And then when he came home, he hated being home, and he would take it out on my mom. And being the oldest, I remember grabbing his leg when he ran past to grab my mom to beat up on her because, God forbid, she should have a problem with his womanizing. God forbid that she should have a problem with his being gone for 4 days and her not even knowing if he was alive or what he was doing. Not to mention the fact that we were poor because he didn't provide for us financially. Not to mention the fact that we were hungry because our fridge was always empty. And so forth and so on. So in the midst of that, as a child, how do you process that? Especially back then when what happens, that whole what happens here stays here, well, that's how we live with my house. You don't talk about what happens in our house. Because outside the house, you're going to wear that mask. Outside the house, because we're going to put you in Catholic school because it seems to be the thing to do. You're going to wear the uniform and look proper and say the right words, and we're going to go to church because we need to have your communion, and we need to do this, and we need to do that, but not because it was in the heart, and not surely because we were living in that place. So it's crazy when you're a child and you're in a certain atmosphere, how you learn to adapt to that atmosphere. It doesn't matter what it looks like to others. What matters is, that's all I know. So I'm okay with it, because for me not to be okay with the aftermath of all that means I'm gonna break down. It doesn't matter how drunk I am. It doesn't matter how self-destructive I've been I've been. It doesn't matter how horrible as a mother I was in all of that time. It didn't matter anything, because that's what I knew, and I was surviving. And I had to survive, because anything else could not be an option. It was too scary. And yes, I have been on the path where my life was not worth it, and I did not want to live anymore either. It was too painful. I was too afraid. I was too alone. I was too far gone. So you're hanging on to that last breath every single time that I would wake up and not remember what happened the night before. But know that something must have happened, because I have an incident report from the police department on the desk. The person I happened to be with in a relationship at that time is not sleeping next to me, so they're obviously in a hotel or arrested. And my daughter probably went to her friend's house. And that's the crazy, that's the insanity. That's what my dysfunctional upbringing led me to. I love my mother. I've always believed my mother was just as much a victim as I was. And by the time that I reached that place where I was done, I said, I can't anymore. I don't even know how I got here. How did I get here, Lord? 45 years old, checking myself into a residential program. How did this happen to me, and why did this happen to me? I'm innocent. All I wanted to do was be a child, have fun at school, grow up, play with my friends, right? How did this happen to me? How did it at 11 years old do I begin to drink and drug and have sex and run away and steal and skip school and so forth and so on? At 11 years old. How? That's crazy. I'm so grateful that today in my recovery, I have the same fearlessness in my recovery and in my journey with Jesus that I did in the dark. Because you want to talk conqueror? It is my life's mission to be the warrior for Christ, to share my story, to tell everyone that I don't care what you started, how you started. I'm not where I want to be. I may be halfway there, maybe. But I know I am not finishing the same way that I started. Yeah. Because Jesus didn't start me out that way. Man started me out that way. Sin started me out that way. And after 33 and a half years, I can tell you, I am so tired of bowing down to everybody else's sin. I'm not perfect, and thank God I can live with my imperfection today. I'll own my imperfection. I will hold myself accountable for my side of the street. But I will no longer allow the power of anyone else's dysfunction or sinful nature be what controls me. It almost killed me. For 33 and a half years, I allowed I was 8 years old when my father left us. And before he left us, he kidnapped myself, my sister, my brother for, it felt like ever. I say a month, but the truth is, I'm just wondering what I felt like, right? So for all I know, it was a month. Honestly, my mom can't tell me because she suffered such an intense nervous breakdown that I don't even think she remembers the day we came home. But I remember the day we came home. I remember walking up the stairs to go towards the front door, and when we came in, her on a recliner, and I was so happy to see her. And I'm like, Mom, it's me, Jackie. And it's like she could barely even muster a smile, but nobody was there. She was so somewhere else. And I can't even imagine what that must have been like for my mom. In that short year, where it was my mom, my grandmother, myself, and my brother and sister, that's probably the best year of my childhood. The relationship I had with my mom was incredible. My mom was, and I can imagine, my mom was probably so much fun to be around because she didn't have that darkness hanging over her, telling her all the time how insufficient she was, how, everything that I'm sure that my father would tell her because he was the problem. I know my mom was an enabler. I believe she was a codependent. She had 3 kids. I get it. I can understand my mother today as an adult and as a mother. But today I no longer allow any of that to be what carries me today. So, just to give you a little more history or background. So I finally, by the time I was 13, had run away so many times, and I was more out on the streets than I was at home, and then finally I ran away from Miami up north to New Jersey. And after about 4 months, I got caught, and they brought me down, and I went to spend the night at the juvie. And the next morning, my stepfather and my mother met me in court, and they turned me over to the state of Florida. Like as if I didn't feel like I didn't have a voice already. Now, I'm not even good enough to be part of the family. So now I belong to the state. But you see, that's like 3 years, about 3 years after all the crazy thinking, that I was happy. Yay, I'm free! Like really, 13 years old, being excited that you no longer have any legal ties to your family. I wanted that freedom. For me, it was a way out. What I didn't know was that way out, because there was no direction, but what I knew and what I thought I needed to know would lead me down even a deeper hole, a deeper path, even bring me more pain, but now by my own hand, by my own decisions. It was no longer my father's fault. It was no longer my stepfather's fault. It was no longer the fault of everybody I could blame while I was in that space. It was all my fault. But the truth was, it really wasn't even my fault, because it's all I knew, how to get myself away from not feeling, not being part of the truth that I knew too well. I wanted to escape from that. So I went to live at the Miami Bridge, and I was there, and I started working, and you know, what's crazy is my household was so dysfunctional that anytime I was in a youth hall, a halfway house, a juvie, man, I was an A1 student. I did so well, and I know today I did so well because the structure is what I needed. There was no structure in my upbringing. It was a mess. There was no consistency. You never knew what to expect. You lived on eggshells. You lived in fear. You missed your dad, but then when he came home, you were sorry he was home. Like, you're confused. You don't know what's going on. You don't even know how to even understand, where do I fit? How am I supposed to, what do I do with this? So I hung out at the Miami Bridge for a little bit, wound up working, did really well, and then it was time to fly. If there's anything I knew how to do really well by the time I was 14, was run away. So, in usual jockey form, saved enough money, found a wonderful brother and sister who also wanted to Dodge, and we ran away from the halfway house, grabbed a Greyhound bus, and we went off to where else? California. Woo! Right? Because that's where the party is. That's where, that's where you can be free and live, high-spirited, and that's where all the dreams will come true, right? Again, the thinking that led me further deeper. It was great. If there's anything I was always able to do from the age of, actually like 12, was work. Because back then you could work under the table and there was not many questions asked. And I always worked. If there was anything, and I think that was like a thing that I did probably to have the only bit of control over something in my life that made me feel that I was still present somehow. I always was able to find a job. So we took off to Berkeley, California. The next day I started working as a waitress, and I was there, I guess, I was gone for a while, and then fast forward, because there's a lot of stories amongst those years. But when I was 17, my father had sent a friend to our home here in Miami to let us know, my mom and the kids, that he was living in Las Vegas, so that if we wanted to reach out, he was listed in the phone book. And my stepfather basically chased him off the property, pointing the gun and telling him to get out of here, because that was the other whole thing. When my stepfather came into the picture, even though I was confused and my father scared me because I've seen him break plates over my little brother's head, beat up my mom, I was afraid of him. He never hurt me, but I still wanted to know about my dad. He dropped us off and that was the end of that. Where's my dad? Is he coming back? What's going on? Who's this new guy? I was curious and bold, so that could be trouble. So my stepfather would not have it. And I understand, yes, he was protecting my mother. I get it now, fast forward, God discloses things and you're like, okay, let it go, forgive and so forth. But at that time, it's like, no, he's my dad. So every time I would talk about my dad, I would get beat up, put in the closet, I would get in trouble. And I hated my stepfather. That's when that resentment started to really get watered and watered and watered. And so I started to steal from my stepfather. And I started to do everything I was doing already. I brought it to the 10th level because I was hoping that if I got really bad, my stepfather might leave. But as you can see, that backfired because I was the one who was pretty much ousted. So anyways, I'm in Berkeley and living life, having a blast. Berkeley back then, hey, I don't have to go into, I don't want to trigger anybody, but let's just put it was one huge college party. And I didn't have to be in college. It was just the way Berkeley was. This is in the 70s. All right, yeah, so go figure, late 70s. And so my mom, I used to call my mom every now and then just to let her know I was still alive, so she didn't worry. And this one time I called her, she tells me about the guy who came to the house that my father's listed, he's living in Vegas, so forth. And of course, for some of you can appreciate this, back in the day, we had the white pages. You could call 411 and have the operator tell you whatever information you wanted, or the 555-1212 number if it was out of state. I can't even believe I remember that. Sometimes I don't remember what happened yesterday. But anyways, so I look him up and I call him. And he doesn't know that I haven't been living at home for years now. He has no clue. And so I start to, let him know. He's like, oh, where are you? I'm like, no, I'm Berkeley. What are you doing in Berkeley? I'm like, and then, I let him know. He's like, no. He's like, I'm in Vegas. I'm going to come get you. Or let's meet. I was like, okay, well, you're going to have to come to me. This is where I'm at. You want to talk, come see me. I was very arrogant already by this point, And so he comes down, and we're going to go have dinner, and we just sit in the parking lot forever. We never made it inside the restaurant. It closed, and we were still in the parking lot. Pretty much just catching up since I was 8 years old. And everything that had gone on all in between, and just, I guess catching up. He's like, listen, come back with me. Come back with me, come stay with me, and so forth and so on. And so I was like, okay. I mean, at this point, I'm like, this is better than figuring out where I'm going to sleep tomorrow night, because I was still, very much house bouncing. I mean, I didn't have a home or anything. I was just a bouncer. I fit in any atmosphere, anywhere, because my life depended on it. My shelter depended on it. My provision depended on it. So if I needed to be hanging out with a bunch of bikers, I was a bikerette. If I needed to be like a jock, I was a jockette. It didn't matter. I was a chameleon. I wore that mask better than anybody, anytime, any space. It didn't matter. Again, because that was my survival. I had to. That's what I learned how to do. So we go to Vegas, and he's got a nice little condo. He's a blackjack dealer, and it turned out he had to go to work that night at 11 at night. He worked swing shift, which was perfect. So I had all night long to do whatever I wanted in Vegas. So dangerous. And so he goes to work, and he tells me, hey, just figure out where to put your stuff and this. And sure enough, so as I'm in one of the cabinets, figuring out where I'm going to put some clothes, whatever, I come across his cocaine stash. I'm like, oh, this is so good. We are going to get along. Because you see, when we talked on the phone, and then when he came and we were talking in the parking lot, he wanted me to go live with him. I said, that's fine, but you need to know this. In other words, I'll go, but these are my conditions. I smoke pot, I drink, I have sex, I do pills, I do acid, I do this, I do that, So if you're good with that, I'll come. And he was like, okay, no problem. And then, of course, later I'm like, oh, no wonder, because he's parties too. At the end of the day, the one good thing my father did do for me was, because I did look like a hippie, and by the way, those were his first words to me when he saw me for the first time in so many years. And the truth was, I looked like I was growing up, I was on the streets, I looked like a hippie, that's who I was. I'm proud of it, by the way. He put me in opportunity school, because I had not been going to school for so long that I couldn't go back to regular school. So I had to go to opportunity school. And in opportunity school, I mean, it's not like you're there for the opportunity to become a doctor. You're in opportunity school because you need the opportunity to get back into regular school, which means all of the burnouts were in opportunity school. So it was like, my familia, mi gente, like, you know, it's gonna be great. And of course it was great. Talk about, I'm new to Vegas, and I didn't have to go far to figure out who I was gonna be hanging out with or where I belonged. It was put right in front of me. The difference now was, which was actually the dangerous difference, I didn't have to worry about where I was going to sleep. I didn't have to worry about where my food was coming from. I didn't have to worry about the shelter, all the things that I had to worry about being on the streets. I didn't have to worry about it anymore because I'm living with my father. So now I have like free reign to do whatever I want. Oh, Dad, you want to go to this party? Now my father at the time, he's got his own guilt thing going on because of so many years of being absent that I got to do whatever I wanted. I want to go to this party? He'd give me that like real father thing. Well, who's the party's house? You know, he tried to be the, you know, the father. But at the end of the day, I did whatever I wanted. So I wound up getting into regular school. I did great, like I said, when I'm in a structure. I do amazing. That still is today proves to be more and more awesome in my life. I need that structure. But he also put me in etiquette school because my father was very about image and, you know, very OCD and the way he wore his clothes. So, you know, here I come, street kid. He's just like, oh my God, my friends, this is going to be embarrassing. I'm thinking. So he puts me in Barbizon school, which was also like an etiquette school, but a modeling school. And I love it. It's like, oh my gosh, the fashion, the colors, the makeup. Like all of a sudden it's like a whole new world to me, but I love it, you know? But I know I loved it because it was like attention, you know? It was like runway, it was like pictures, I loved it for all the wrong reasons, for sure. Although today I will tell you, if you see my mask match my shirt or my eyeshadow match my outfit, you'll know where that came from. I am still an accessorizer. But yeah, so I went through that and then I wound up just really hanging out with him for a while. I did well, and then I got pregnant. And I didn't tell anybody I got pregnant. I was 19 years old. The one thing my father never wanted me to do, because I was doing really well, because I went to Japan for 6 months, I wound up auditioning at a dance studio that I was doing dance at, and made the cut, and went on tour for 6 months. It was awesome. I made some money. It was like, man, I was just like a rock star. It was great. But it wasn't great for someone like me. Because it was all, again, the persona, right? Still hiding, still running, just in a different way. And so when I came back, he loved to show me off. Because he was ego, he was all about ego. And the one thing he would always tell me was not to fall in love. Don't get involved. Do you, focus on you, you stay on track. Now, mind you, the truth is that's what I tell a lot of my sponsees today. Listen, focus on you right now. You're too soon in recovery, or you're too soon since you quit, you know, drinking or drugging. Do you first, you know, learn who you are first. So the truth was that there was some truth to that. But I had always been with people, men, since I was 11 years old. I didn't know how to be alone. I needed to be with somebody because regardless that a guy, a boy, even a man, wanted to be with me, and even if it was for the wrong reason, for me, that was the only physical nurturing I was getting. And I needed it. Because even though I may have been 15, 18, 22, emotionally I was still 8 years old. I was still that kid, that little girl that needed to figure out like, where do I fit? I want to be loved. Love me, you know? And so, because I couldn't be alone and I needed that was my way of, I guess, feeling secure emotionally. I met a guy and we fell in love, and of course, because I was an addict, he was an addict, I mean, it made sense. We wound up falling in love, and our addiction went to the next level because he was a dealer, and then, you know, I was trying to get out because, you know, it's just like I knew this was not good for me. I barely weighed 80 pounds, and finally we broke up, but then we get hooked up again, and then I got pregnant. And, you know, God's so amazing because you never know how God's working. You know, my daughter is the most amazing, amazing woman. I got sober when she was 23 years old, and for those 23 years, well, you know, she's a baby, an infant, but for the most part, she was my mom. I was the kid. I was the messed up child. She had to figure out how to do it all by herself, you know, because I wasn't present. My focus was on Jackie and what Jackie wanted. And at that time, like, it's a kid raising a kid, right? Like, I had no clue. And then a hurt kid trying to raise a kid. Thinking that I would never do that to my own child, but yet, I didn't know how not to. And it was through my daughter and her searching for something stable in the time that I was really bad, that she became part of a youth group, and it was in that youth group that she turned her life over to Christ. And shortly after, I got a DUI, and then of course, I'm sure none of you relate, but I was in crisis and I needed to like find that quick fix, save me thing. And it was just like, oh yeah, I'll give my life to Jesus too. But it was through my daughter, God used my daughter to bring me to the Lord. And that was in 2000. But you know, there's something funny about when you turn your life over to your Lord and Savior. You're doing it because you need to do it, because you need to kind of just level your living life stage, or you're really doing it sincerely because you want to change. So when I turned my life over to Christ in the year of 2000, I did it because I was in a crisis, and I was afraid, and I had a DUI, and I had court, and I was afraid to go to jail, and I didn't know what was going to happen, and I might lose my daughter. In other words, I did it for the wrong reasons. I had a different agenda than the one that only matters, and that's committing my life to serve God all the rest of my days. So, I don't even know. Shortly after, I took my will back, and I was right back out to the races. And, you know, alcohol and drug addiction is kind of like a funny thing. It progresses. It gets worse. I've never heard anybody say, like, oh yeah, I've been doing drugs and alcohol now I've been an alcoholic and an addict now for 30 years, but it's starting to finally dwindle down. It doesn't work that way. It gets worse. Yes. You know? I don't care how much I want to believe it doesn't, or I'm better, or I'm only drinking on Friday, or I got rid of the alcohol, the vodka, I'm only doing beer. It doesn't matter how much I want to try to formalize it in my head. It gets worse. So that's what happened. And then you fast forward to August 3rd, 2008. I am a mess. I'm angry. Oh yeah, because by this time, anger had set was such a part of my drunk and addicted state of being. And any man I was with at the time got the brunt of it. And I know it was because of all my daddy and stepdaddy issues. That's the guy who I used to beat up on. He's the one I would call the cops on and say, you don't leave now, I'm going to tell him you beat me up. And I was just like a piece of work. And it was horrible because I didn't even know it. Like, you know, first of all, I didn't know it because I didn't remember. Like, if I ever wished somebody would have recorded me on video so I could see, like, myself, it would have been them, because some of the stories I've heard from my daughter or that person I was with, like, it was like, you're exaggerating. Like, you know, like, there's no way. That's like the devil. You're describing the devil. And so on August 3rd, 2008, I'm like a rageaholic. I'm drunk off of my mind. I'm high on Xanax, high on cocaine, because of course I needed the Xanax to bring me down from the cocaine, because, you know, and I'm driving home from a bar literally 5 minutes from my house. I don't remember leaving the bar. I'm making my way around Miami-Dade College because I live on the other side. I lose control. I flipped my car 4 times. I was told there was a fence there and it was a good thing because there was a canal. I don't know who called the police. I don't know nothing because I don't remember. Somewhere in there I must have mentioned my brother, who's a firefighter, because he was contacted. God has a wonderful way of extending his grace and his mercy. No matter, it has nothing to do of whether I deserve it or not. What I deserved that day was honestly to be put away and locked up for the rest of my life. Not because I was a threat to society, but because I was a threat to myself. When they put me in, because I got airlifted to Jackson trauma, when they put me in the helicopter, my brother says the pilot told my brother that when they put me in the helicopter, the pilot could smell the alcohol all the way up in the cabin. That's how much I reeked. And yet, I didn't get a DUI. The police report, because I wind up getting airlifted to Jackson. My family's contacted, they're heading to the hospital. They're trying to find me, and then my mom says that my sister told me that they were able to find me because they heard me screaming and yelling like a crazy woman. And when they found me, I had literally been tied down to the bed because I was cursing everybody and hitting everybody and telling them to let me die. Just leave me alone and let me die. Like, it seemed like it was probably the best time to do it if I was going to go there, right? Just leave me alone, let it just happen right here and now. And that's how that's how I was towards the end of my drinking and using. I hated myself. I hated what I was doing, and I hated even more that I couldn't stop. I didn't even know how to even begin to stop. So after I got out of the hospital, which another miracle, because of course, my car that looked like a ball, the driver's seat, untouched. Do you think maybe God has a plan? Do you think somebody loves me in a way that I've never understood? Is it possible that I'm worth saving? And that was my first real encounter with the idea that there just might be a God who loves me. I walked away from that accident, you know, really bruised and so forth. They took x-rays at the hospital, nothing was broken, but a couple days later, when I guess the swelling went down, turns out I had 4 broken ribs. And I was so desperate at that time, it didn't matter. 2 days later, I checked myself at South Miami residential treatment program. Broken ribs at all, it didn't matter. I didn't care. I didn't care. I was done. I was done, and I needed to figure out how to like press the reboot button and forget everything like I knew it, because none of it was serving me right. And so I went to treatment, and there was a few people who hated me because I was like the perfect student in rehab. I was hungry. I wanted this, and nobody was going to get in my way. I think for the first time I was selfish for the right reasons. I got a sponsor right away. I went to a newcomers meeting at South Miami Hospital, and there was a speaker that night, and she was like telling my story, and it was amazing. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, and this and that. And so like at the end, she's like, I don't know if anybody has any questions, and I don't know, there's like 100 people in the room, and I raised my hand. She goes, oh yes. I go, will you be my sponsor? I didn't know, but I really didn't care either. I was desperate. And she's like, come talk to me after the meeting. And she asked me one question, just one question that was going to determine whether or not she would be my sponsor. And she said, are you willing to do whatever it takes? And I said, yeah, whatever it takes. And And there's my journey. That's where it began, August 4, 2008. That was the first day I began my sobriety journey. It's now a little over 13 years. And listen, as great as I feel, I'm so excited for still what's to come. But just for today, I can't tell you how like, don't tell my friends, okay? Don't tell my friends I'm here. That's the old friends, the old lifestyle, because they wouldn't believe it. The truth is, I don't think I'd believe it either if you were telling me about somebody I knew, because that's what God does. You want to talk about a conqueror? Jackie didn't do this. All I had to do was finally surrender. Finally be honest and tell God, okay, I am really ready this time. I don't know what to do, but I'm going to trust you to show me what I need to do. I'm going to trust you to put the people that I need next to me to help me do it. I'm going to trust you to show me, to lead me, whatever it takes. And that's how I continue to live my recovery today. All in. All in. You know, one of the greatest gifts that I've had in recovery is the opportunity to be a sponsor. And I have a full plate of sponsees, active sponsees. And when I say active, that means they're all working the 12 steps. And the privilege has been because I learned so much. I learned so much about myself through them because God shows me who He created. And I forget who it was earlier who said, it's not about what I thought God created, you know, it's like the one that brought me back, you know, like this is where I was, but God brought me full circle back to the day I was born, to the one He made, to the one He created. And God shows me through my commitment to serve Him, to step up, to say yes, in all that He can do through me. And I say it all the time, it's like, man, I am not that smart to have come up with that. I'm not stupid, but this goes beyond my natural capabilities. So I know it's a supernatural that guides me, because I ask the supernatural Holy Spirit to come upon me, to come upon my sponsee, to come upon the meeting, to come upon wherever, because I want to be out of the way. A warrior knows the battle. I know the battle. I know the battle is not against well, it's against the flesh. I know it's flesh and blood, and I know it's against the flesh, but the truth is, it is about the principalities. It's about the principalities you don't see. It's about, like, my waking up this morning and almost being late when I wanted to be here on time, so I'm not, you know, in that state. Because, right, that's all it takes sometimes. It's just some little something to be off. So these little things. And I'm still growing. And I'm so thankful that today I'm teachable. I'm working on being more teachable under my own household, like when my husband tries to teach me something. I'm still working on that. Especially because he's 10 years younger. And I'm like, I'm the elder here. But it's really been amazing only because God is amazing. If I didn't have the opportunity to even understand a little bit of the idea of what God's love can do for me, there's no way I'd be where I'm at today. Because understanding that greater love that lives in me when I receive Jesus is what carries me every day, no matter what. Today I'm strong because I'm strong in Christ. Amen. Today, I can walk down a Publix aisle of wine or beer or whatever, and it can laugh as loud as it wants in my face, and I'm like, bind, 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 rebuke, rebuke, rebuke. Amen. I know who I am. Amen. I know the authority that I stand under. I know the authority that walks with me. I know the shield. I know the armor. And for me to be that warrior means to stand in the gap for those that today don't have a voice, where I used to be once, where I had that person who stood in the gap for me. I get to pray behind the scenes and intercede for anyone that God puts in my heart. Because I have that authority to ask God, and I am his child, and I can say, Lord, please, please, please help this person, or please do this, or please, Lord, your will be done. And if your will is this, help me to accept it as it is, and to be what I need to be in it.
Yes.
Amen.
Because otherwise, I'm going to get in the way. And I know what that looks like. And I don't want to do that anymore. I'm over Jackie. I really am. So if you're not feeling like a conqueror today, if you feel like there's still something that continues to beat you down, that wants to rob you of any bit of joy and peace that you have in your life, whatever that is, I ask you, how sincere, how honest, how committed are you to really want to surrender it to God? Like, do you still have one foot here but the other there? Because I've learned as recently as this past Tuesday, because, you know, for the last couple of years almost, I've been, hi, my name is Jackie, I have Celebrate Recovery in this area and that area and so forth, and today my struggle is discipline issues, procrastination, mostly because of distraction. And probably for the last almost year, every time I said that, I heard God's voice in my ear saying, yes, the game's on your phone. I'm being totally transparent here today. And then last Tuesday, woke up, I was still working from home, opened the window, the clouds look beautiful, I'm listening to the birds. I'm like, Lord, send your angels to help me be productive today. And he goes, get rid of the phone, get rid of the games. And right there, it was like I knew. It was like, ah! Why haven't I been able to get rid of the games? So, you know what I did Tuesday? I deleted the games. And I can tell you, my life has already changed in that minute that I did that. Like, that's God. And that's what I'm asking you. What is it that is conquering you? What is still holding you back from being all that you want to be, or that you know you can be through Jesus? Be bold. Be a warrior. Take a stance. Make a statement. Let the devil know that that's it. I may not want to flush this down the toilet, but you know what? In faith, I'm going to flush it down the toilet. And watch how God shows up in a way that you've never experienced before.
Amen.
For those of you who may not know or have a relationship with Jesus, maybe you've been thinking about it. Maybe God's been putting it on your heart over and over and over, and you're just like, that's not for me. Oh, I'm not worthy. Oh, I've done so many things. There's just no way. That's the whole point. The sacrifice of Jesus on that cross was not. It's not like you have to pay it back. It was a gift for anyone who wants it. Anyone who wants to receive the freedom in Jesus. It's available to you. It doesn't matter what others think. It doesn't even matter really what you think. But if your heart is telling you that it's time for a change, time to do something different, time to be uncomfortable, this is the time. I ask you to open up your heart to Jesus. Invite him into your heart. Ask him to be your Lord and Savior. Repent. And repentance, I could say I'm sorry to Jesus 100 times, but I'm still doing the same thing over and over and over. That's not, I'm not repenting. I'm just going to God and say, oh yeah, you died on the cross, so you have to forgive me. Oh, I don't even want to have that conversation. I don't want to take Jesus for granted anymore. I took it for granted for so many years and didn't even know it. Today I want to do my best to be more like Jesus. I want to show people those nails, right? I want to show everybody that I'm connected to Jesus. Look, I have his scars too. And I'm here to tell you that he is real, and he is liberating, and he loves you, and he's never going to let you go, and you're never going to be separated from the love of God, and that's what we're here for today. Romans 8, I think it's 1 and 2, about being separated. Actually, it's Romans 8:35. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall trouble, or hardship, or persecution, or famine, nakedness, danger? What? What is in your mind separating you from the love of Christ. Because it's not Christ, it's not God. He's right here, he is right next to you. We feel separated because we're not living right. The world looks so pretty usually, right? Oh, with this and that. Listen, it doesn't matter. My peace today matters. My joy matters. Oh, my commitment to Christ matters. My journey matters. My identity matters. All that I am in Christ is all that matters to me. If you don't have a local church, if you're a new believer, if you want to turn your life over to Christ, I ask that you, and all those online, find somebody. Pray to God to lead you to that place. To put believers, God-fearing men and women in your life to lead you to know how and what you need to do to walk the steps towards the freedom we have in Christ. To be more than a conqueror. Jesus is waiting for you. It doesn't matter. You don't have to look pretty. You don't have to clean yourself up. You don't have to do anything but ask God in. There's so much more to come. This past year, I had the privilege to just, God just opens doors and I've learned how to walk through them, even if I'm like, why? Like, I still said, okay, really? Are you sure? And then he'll be like, move. I'll be okay. And then I really just moved in faith. Last year, I graduated from 2 years. I have an associate's in theology after attending 2 years and 4 months, thanks to COVID, university. This for all of God. I don't say that for me. I lead the Celebrate Recovery ministry over at the Miami Vineyard Church, and May's going to be 10 years. And I can tell you, the first 2 years, if I had one person, I was excited. As COVID is starting to behave itself a little bit, thank God, and it's not about the numbers, but I know it's about the freedom. We're finally having more people come back because it's about hurts, habits, and hang-ups. My issue was not drugs or alcohol or men. My issue was everything that came before that. That's what I had to work through, and that's why I am such an advocate and a believer of the 12 steps. I do my 12 steps almost every single year. I learned so much about myself and what God wants to show me when I can get real with myself. And sometimes I got to do it in that structured way. With the books, the homework, the class, the whole deal. That's just who I am. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. But this past September, I had the privilege of becoming the Celebrate Recovery State Rep for the Miami and Broward counties. So I oversee all of the Celebrate Recoveries in Miami and Broward now. And that's just another blessing. I've had the privilege of attending all kinds of webinars and trainings. I'm in the process now with my beautiful friend, who I'm going to introduce you to in a moment, of getting my Florida State certification to be a peer support specialist. Like all the stage, right? All the world's a stage for me right now because of God. There's nothing I'm doing. And to be honest, I have no clue what all this means, but I know God already sees it, and he already knows how it's going to be, and he's going to lay that puzzle piece down when the time comes. And I'm good with that, because my worst day of not knowing what's happening is definitely going to lead to my most amazing victory after today. Like today I'm victorious, but the victory that still awaits me to serve my God here on this earth is still what I look forward to. I'm just so grateful for everything that God's done. I'm so thankful that it's not up to Jackie. And should I go ahead and, okay.
Yeah, I want to say after you introduce it, I have something.
Okay, perfect. So, if you don't know about Celebrate Recovery, please feel free to reach out to me. If you want to turn your life over to Jesus, or did turn your life over to Jesus, or not sure what that even means, email me. It's celebraterecovery@miamivineyard.com. Celebraterecovery@miamivineyard, that's VINEYARD.com. I'm happy to help you, facilitate you to wherever, and it doesn't matter where you live, because that's what this is about. We're in this together. Nobody has to do this alone. God put a lot of people in this world, not so we could just look pretty to one another, but so we can walk alongside one another. so we can be family. And I love at CR, we call ourselves Forever Family. So one of the things we do at Celebrate Recovery every other week, we have a testimony. And I'm so happy that I have my sister Giovanna here today, who's going to do a mini testimony. She'll tell you a story, and she'll just, I don't know who earlier said to, I have the privilege of being reminded every day of how big our God is, because I get to see firsthand all the miracles that he does in people's lives. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you so very much. In just a moment, we're going to ask you to come up and give your testimony. In the next hour or so, we're going to have several testimonies. She's going to give her, it's Gio, right? Gio? She's going to give her testimony. Jim Myrick's going to give his testimony. Phil and Christine are going to give their joint testimony as a couple. And then we have Erica. Erica's going to give her testimony. Now, you notice the shirt that Jackie had on, it says Cross+Florida. That actually stands for something. Cross+Florida stands for Christian Recovery Organizations, plural, Christian Recovery Organizations of South Florida Summit. That's what that stands for. And again, this is the 10th year that we've done this, and we appreciate all the different participations. We've got a number of different organizations here in South Florida, thank goodness, that deal with recovery. Now, what I want to tell you, especially those that are giving your testimony, there's a guy coming right in, and he's coming in the door right now with his children. His name is Dice, and he's going to be doing music after you all give your testimonies. And we're going to be very blessed with that. But he's got to set up. And so he's going to be setting up behind you. Don't pay any attention to him. And all the rest of you all, they're invisible. You can't see Dice. You can't see what they're doing. So don't pay any attention to Dice while he sets up, okay? All right, come up here and give your testimony.